So you probably wouldn't expect this from me, but I love QuickTime events. Now, I of course need to specify, I don't love all QuickTime events. They have a very particular place where I think they work, and that is fighting games. I'll admit, I haven't played a lot of fighting games, but for about a year and a half now, I've been in love with the Yakuza series. I hope to do a proper video on them someday, but after the crunch of my Half-Life Alyx mapping contest videos, let's just do something simple. Back to these QTEs. In Yakuza, QuickTime events only appear during various mid-fight cutscenes, and during certain special moves you can perform called heat actions. As a result of this, you aren't constantly on edge during a cutscene. You know when a QTE can appear and when it cannot, which is important to a game as cutscene heavy as Yakuza. Personally, I think that this should be a general rule of thumb for games that want to include QuickTime events. Use the language of game design to let me know when I need to be ready to act fast. This could be a musical choice, a flash on the screen, a change to a scripted camera angle during a fight, or just watching our character get into a dangerous situation. So, with that out of the way, let's step back for a moment and look at what a QTE really is, or at least what I personally think they should be. As I said, QTEs are best used in fighting games, and this is because fighting games, at their core, are about quickly reacting to something on screen by pressing the proper button. This could be as simple as dodging or blocking when an enemy is about to attack, but it also includes something like a counterattack, such as Kiryu's Tiger Drop or Tanimura's Parry. The former especially is a move that requires extreme precision and will take a great deal of practice against each individual attack. These are very specific moves that you won't be using for the majority of the game, but for something more broad, we can look back to the actual activation of these heat actions. At various points in every Yakuza game, you'll suddenly be prompted to press the triangle button to initiate a heat action, but each one has certain qualifications to start. One might require that you be holding an enemy near a street pole, another requires that you be performing Yagami's wall run ability, etc. However, the one that immediately springs to mind as having similarities to QuickTime events is the classic Komaki-style parry. This requires that you hit triangle to initiate the heat action in a very short window, right as an enemy is attacking you with bare fists, with a different heat action playing based on the direction you're attacking from. Is this really all that different from quickly pressing the dodge button right as an enemy is attacking? No? Well, I know exactly what you're thinking. That's great and all, but that still allows you to choose what move to use. A QuickTime event is just press X to not die. This is where I'm going to come out of left field for a moment and talk about the modern Doom games. Anyone who's played these knows that they're as intense as all hell, and I'm certain that with this, you know the feeling of being 5 minutes into a ridiculously fast-paced fight, initiating a glory kill, and using that split-second break you get to quickly scratch your nose or something. Mid-fight cutscenes such as these can do great and subtle things for a game's user-friendliness and approachability, and Yakuza fights, like Doom fights, can be incredibly intense at times. When you're dealing with Yao Guai towards the end of Yakuza 0, and having such an intense fight, a scene like this actually serves as a breather, as intense as it is. However, you're in the middle of a fight, so while your left hand might be scratching your nose or taking a sip from your drink, your right hand is standing guard on the face buttons, ready for any QuickTime event that might appear. It's a mid-combat cutscene, giving you a chance to think for a second about your strategy, your comfort, or whatever else. It's absolutely amazing to watch, and it still allows you to participate in the game while keeping your other hand free for just a moment. You're still doing exactly what you were doing before, pressing buttons at the perfect time based on what's happening on screen, but the game very deliberately gives you these pseudo-breaks halfway through the fight, where for just a moment, player agency is traded for player comfort, and this can do great things for a player's stamina in the fight. Much like how the modern Doom games improve player stamina by giving us a split second to scratch our nose, Yakuza gives us several seconds at a time where we drastically lower our participation in the game, but the quality of the animation in these games just means that this only increases our excitement, and our love for these characters in a major way. A huge part of Kiryu's battle personality is brought across in these heat actions and QuickTime events. So these QTEs can give us a quick break to increase our stamina, keeping us fighting for longer. They put the spectacle on Spectacle Fighter, and they bring across a part of the character's personality. They can also be used to further the themes of a particular part of the game, which is what I'm all about. For this, let's look at another fight in Yakuza 0. After a long, multi-stage fight against a man who's trying to, for lack of a better phrase, steal Kiryu's destiny for himself, we have our opponent pinned against the bow of the ship. The fight is over, but it's time for a QuickTime event to show us how Kiryu feels about this fight. After this long, difficult fight, the game prompts us to just wail on our opponent, just pounding him to submission by mashing square, the standard attack button, as we've done so many times before. We're still so filled with adrenaline from the rest of the fight. Then, in a desperate bid to regain dominance, our opponent parries our right hook, and rather than giving him an inch by dodging his counterattack, we use triangle to block his attack with a quick arm raise, before pinning that arm back on the handrail, and going back to mashing square, just continuing to wail on him. This is all gloriously intense, but this section serves as an exciting way for us to release all that energy we've been building up over the rest of the fight. That's why Kiryu blocks with the heavy attack button instead of dodging with the dodge button. Then our opponent parries again with this arm grab, and unlike the last time he parried, he doesn't even have time to execute a counterattack before we use circle, the button bound to grabbing and countering enemy grabs, to slam his own fist against him, just brutalizing him. And we watch Kiryu punch this enemy more brutally than any other attack in the game, and that's really saying something, before finally finishing him off with one more circle hit. The way Kiryu's body language explains his thought process here is just so perfect. Just pounding into this guy more and more brutally, our square button mashing making it feel like Kiryu's attacks aren't going to stop until this guy's dead, and finally we finish him off. This would have made for a kick-ass cutscene. After all, every good boss fight needs an ending cutscene. But thanks to these QuickTime events, the ending cutscene, after the truly difficult part of this fight, serves as a much more organic way for us to cool down, and we get an absolutely fantastic character insight in tandem with it. This character insight is even more fitting considering the decision Kiryu is faced with immediately after this fight, but the way that these QTEs serve to further emphasize how hard Kiryu is willing to work for his eventual destiny, and how offended he is by someone trying to steal it from him by using these unethical means, it's... Well, I'm getting excited talking about Yakuza, and this is getting into spoiler territory, so for now, let's just say that I'm really into moments like this. I think a lot of the hate directed at QuickTime events comes from the simple, and sometimes accurate notion that QTEs generally just take agency away from the player, and ask us to play a totally different game for a few minutes, because the game devs couldn't figure out a way to implement the emotion they wanted to bring across into the standard gameplay loop. So they just shove some non-sequitorial gameplay into a cutscene. In a good QTE, that isn't the case at all. As Yakuza shows us, a good QTE and a good fight aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, they can be codependent. Good QTEs can cap off all the emotion we've built up over the course of the fight. They can serve as a quick break that still asks us to stay engaged in the action on the screen, they can serve as a firm but fair test of our reaction time, or hey, they can also be comedic, using good character animation to bring across a character or scene's personality in a major way. I think it's hard to call anything in game design or art in general inherently bad. Breaking the 180-degree rule, having corny dialogue, bullet magnetism, overpowered weapons, escort, or even trailing missions. They're all just tools in an artist's belt, but like any other tool, they need to be used sparingly, in the right place at the right time. QuickTime events are no exception.
なんか入ってる。お、入ってる。お、ちょっと。待て。取ったー。500円。
ありがとうございました。こちらお使いください。